Hello, everybody. Today we have Dr. John Lieurance himself coming on, and we're going to talk about everything as it relates to methylene blue from the man himself. So let me get him on. Dr. John, okay. Added you. Did you hop on? And yeah, I've been waiting quite a while actually to get Dr. John on and break down a lot of the myths related to methylene blue. So I'm so glad that he's joining us today. Just give him a second to get on here. There he is. Okay, John, just accept my invite, or maybe here we go. Request. Accept your request. And you should be coming on now. At least I think I accepted. Oh, we'll try again. Accept. Hang on, everybody. This is glitching out a little bit. Invite me. It's not allowing me to accept your invite, but I just sent you an invite, Dr. John. So if you want to accept that, bro. Hmm. Okay, we're having some technical difficulties here. We'll get him on though. What do you think is going on? Collide with him?
Mm-hmm. Unable to join.
He's unable to join. This is super weird.
Hey,
Oh, there we
I'm here.
go.
All
Woo!
right.
It's a
We're
miracle.
live.
We're live. We're finally live. How are you, brother?
Good. Good. You looking good.
Yeah, you too.
I can see
Hi.
we both got our sauna space lights going here. I got mine.
Got mine in the living room here.
Oh
I
yeah.
see we both got our hairdos going on.
Oh man, amazing.
Wow, so good to see you.
Yeah. Yeah. Good to see you too, brother.
Yeah, I saw you. I saw you online at HOS. How did it go?
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I got a chance to share my healing journey a little bit,
Beautiful.
which you've seen a little bit of that.
hmm
Came to visit, kind of in the middle of it,
Many
and
times. Yeah.
so that went really, really well. And a lot of people felt inspired, and I got to share how I'm using photobiomodulation with the injury that I had, and
hmm
how excited I am about using methylene blue. And whoops, yeah.
And now, are you back home? Are you at the office?
Yeah, yeah. I'm still living in the apartment that's adjacent to the clinic. Hey, hey, Christina. Hi. Glad you could join.
Yeah, we got a few Sound Space folks joining. So, yeah, man. Obviously, as you know, methylene blues like all of a sudden everybody's talking about it. Since Chase was on Rogan's podcast, and that's and there's kind of an interesting aside there because Chase is your patient, I believe, right? Like he did his work with you. And ever since then, we've been like completely sold out of all the Lumenthal Blue that we've been carrying your product, Lumenthal Blue, for years now. But yeah, since then, it's like we can't keep it in stock. Every time I think we just got a new supply, and it's all
They're
gone.
they're actually working on your order right now. I walked in there and the girls are just feverishly putting it together, and they
Yeah.
are committed to getting that out to you today.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Yeah, we're satisfying an ever increasing demand. And so, yeah, with all of this, I really wanted to get you on. I already had Tara on, and we kind of went through the basics of what does methylene blue do for the body, what is it used for, and kind of the history of it, kind of the basics, the background. Since then, there's been a lot of talk about some of the purported dangers of methylene blue. And I've looked at a lot of these studies, and I wanted to kind of break down some of this stuff with you. There's a few specific myths that I feel like maybe we could dive into and debunk because more than anyone I know of, you are the expert in methylene blue. You've researched it, you've used it clinically. You're like totally on top of all the research, which is there's a huge body now of research. And so like
This book.
and you've also written one or two books now on it. The what's the name of your book, John?
Well, the third edition, which you were in, my friend, you
Woo!
helped contribute. So anybody that puts in Brian Richards into Amazon books, you're going to come up as one of the authors. And
Amazing.
yeah, so it's literally, I believe it's live today. I know that the Kindle version is, but the audio and the paperback should be literally like within hours, if not tomorrow.
Amazing. And
So
what's
really
the name of
excited
the
about
book?
that. Magic Bullet.
Magic Bullet. So this is your third edition. You've been working with this molecule for quite some time. So yeah, if if you like, let's start to break down some of these sort of myths that are out there. Uh, the first
Love
one
to.
is the so-called serotonin syndrome. So first, you'll need to explain what is that, and how does methylene blue like come into that?
That's a great question to start out with. There was um, some procedures that were done, years ago, where they would give methylene blue to surgical patients that had cancer of their thymus gland, which is kind of behind the breastbone, and they do use methylene blue as a staining agent for the physical body during certain surgeries because it helps to delineate different types of tissues, and methylene blue has this affinity to the mitochondria, which is why we love it, because it gets in there and it's brilliantly blue. It's a salt and it absorbs red, which is what you're all about, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
all of your devices put out this beautiful red color, and this allows the cells to kind of pull that in like a sponge because the blue reflects blue and it absorbs red. That's the way colors work. So, um, kind of understanding that situation, and then knowing the reason why they were using this with the thymus, because the thymus has a very high metabolic need for energy. So there's a lot of mitochondria for each cell within the thymus gland, and so they were doing very high doses IV, intravenous, and then the surgeon was in there making sure that they removed all of the thymus gland because it was cancerous, and they had some challenges with some of the patients that were on SSRIs. And further research, they found out that those patients developed serotonin syndrome. Um, and what they did is they made a blanket warning, which is kind of currently still the mindset within the medical community, is this warning
Mm-hmm.
that it's very black and white. Don't take methylene blue if you're on SSRIs or MAO-A inhibitors because you run the risk of having serotonin syndrome. But Mayo Clinic evaluated that whole situation and then they retracted that warning. The whole country of Canada retracted the warning, but our United States FDA hasn't done anything with that. But when you look at when you look at it, it's done intravenously and it's very high doses, right? The doses that we're talking about using, and I would even offer that if an individual is under 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, there I haven't seen anything in the research that would suggest that they would run a risk of serotonin syndrome. In other words, like let's say that if you like you know you can use Siri to ask Siri how many kilograms is so many pounds, and it'll tell you how many kilograms you weigh, and then you multiply that times however many milligrams you weigh
Hmm.
in kilograms, and that'll give you the dosage for what we're kind of talking about. We typically, I'll tell patients that we're looking at a window between a half a milligram to 4 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, and very little, if any, negative side effects have been reported with people under 4 milligrams per kilogram. But when we get into like people that are using SSRIs or MAO-A inhibitors, I would maybe even add an extra layer of safety. And honestly, when you get to the 2 milligram per kilogram, that works really well for most people. You generally don't have to go higher than that. But and with a caveat, like we're not giving medical advice here, right? This is just for entertainment purposes, educational purposes. You
Hmm.
should speak to your healthcare provider, or you may enroll us. We do distance coaching. Um, but you want to enroll a healthcare professional before you try to do it on your own. But
100%.
the
Yeah.
but the
But
reality is that
you're
it's
you're talking about like what you use clinically as a doctor in your regenerative clinic.
right, exactly.
So below 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight is, in your clinical opinion, is pretty safe for everybody. And but you, in some cases, you're using even more than that, and very for particular unique cases.
Yes,
And how low do you go in your clinic when you're prescribing methylene blue? Do you go all the way down to like half a milligram per kilogram of body weight?
not often. No, I find people respond more with between a milligram and a half to two, maybe a little bit over 2 milligrams per kilogram.
Okay, so
I'd say, for the most part, females, we're right around 45 milligrams, and males maybe around 90. Um,
hmm,
and that makes it easy because the bars are made out at 180 milligrams. So you cut it into quarters, and you can take 2 quarters, um, usually with males, and 1 quarter with females. But, you have to figure out what works for you. As long as you're staying in that safety zone, if you're experimenting. And the other thing is you might find certain times where you're doing things like traveling, or you're sick, you catch a COVID, or, something else. Maybe you're fighting Lyme, and even if you have Lyme and you're looking to battle Lyme, I don't know that I would go really high dose continuously, but you might want to pulse that and definitely combine it with red light, like with the sauna space. I'm a huge fan of your sauna space, by the way. Good job
thank you.
on that technology.
Yeah, I know you've been using you. So John has the super sauna. So he's got a relatively new version where there's 7 bulbs in it, and it just cuts down the session time to like 15 minutes. It's so fast.
Yeah,
Um,
love it.
yeah, and I just hooked you up with the Pure Layer towels. How are you enjoying the new little mat cover and stool cover?
Very comfortable. And they
Yeah,
absorb. Yeah, there's not a lot of mass like there typically is with just putting a towel down.
cool. Yeah, so
Thank you.
we got a question from the audience, but before we go to that, like, let's wrap this up. So what is serotonin syndrome?
It's really just too much serotonin in the system. Serotonin is not something you want a lot of. It can be toxic when it's really high. So there's the serotonin syndrome is when serotonin gets to such a high level, can actually be lethal. Oftentimes, people are okay eventually, but they'll have to oftentimes find themselves in the hospital, um, feeling very ill. But in some cases, it can lead to death. So it's nothing you want to mess around with.
So, so what I understand then is that is, you know, when in your practice clinically, you're staying at these lower doses, these which you know, you're saying is more or less 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, more or less, and it's in this safe range where you, correct me if I'm wrong, you haven't had any patients that have had any serotonin syndrome at these levels.
No, and people, people ask me about like microdosing things like psilocybin that works on serotonin, and I personally haven't seen anything in the research, haven't seen anything clinically that would make me feel like that was putting anybody in danger. I mean, these microdosing schedules are, not elevating serotonin super high, but it's, I think, more in lines with the with a lot of the SSRIs and the MAO-A inhibitors, which don't allow serotonin to be reuptake. They're serotonin reuptake inhibitors, so more serotonin kind of sits out there that
Hmm.
can cause a problem. And so, methylene blue actually has been shown to help with um, depression. In fact, there's been large clinical trials on it, and it elevates dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. So your neurotransmitters get a nice boost, and so we see people feeling really good. It's a very experiential supplement. Very few people, when taken the right dosage for them, will report that they don't feel anything at all. And you
Beautiful.
also, besides taking the right dosage, you also need to think about the delivery, right? And the delivery, that's why we use the bars, because we really want that delivery to happen in the stomach
Yeah,
primarily.
yeah, okay, let's delay this audience question. We'll get to Vesa and Nima. We'll get to you in a second, but yeah, let's talk about that because there's troches out there where basically put it in the mouth and it dissolves in the mouth, and then what you recommend, your product Lumenthal Blue, is oral. So you're taking it, throwing it back, swallowing it really quickly, and then it's digesting in the stomach. Can you go into
Right.
like the advantage or disadvantages of each?
Yeah. So sublingual, first of all, your mouth turns blue. Nobody really likes that. You stain your teeth. You look like you ate a Smurf. um, it's not desirable. Same thing with the droppers, unless you do that in a certain way to avoid the mouth being blue.
Hmm.
Um, although the droppers would be my next favorite way to go, people have a hard time getting the dosage up without their mouth turning blue, though. The absorption happens best in the stomach. It's unlike, there's a lot of supplements that we talk about in natural medicine, like NAD plus and glutathione, and even like melatonin.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of these things that we look at, we start to develop liposomal deliveries, and we use bullets, which are rectal or suppositories that have really great absorption, or even sometimes run these things intravenously. But with methylene blue, there's really no need to, except we do run methylene blue IV. We have a protocol. You've enjoyed it here
Yeah.
before, you and Mila, and we run it, and we want that level of methylene blue to be high in the blood while we expose it to light. And we also use gold and silver intravenously, and those really help to assist this absorption of those photons, so that we can use these photons to create life force. And when we have an abundance of energy in our body, then magical things happen. Our body detoxes itself, it heals, our body creates more balance in the system. And so there's a lot of really amazing things that happen when we can really increase that life force. And ultimately, disease can't live in a system that is with abundant energy, because with abundant energy we have the energy to adapt to stressors. It's when our energy levels go down is when we lose the ability to adapt to stressors, and then disease can manifest itself in the system.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Disease ultimately is an energy problem for sure, and that's what's and so yeah. Well, there's a whole nother myth I want to get into, but I think you've really nailed that. Thank you so much for demystifying that, because that's the way I've felt. It's like with anything, you take way too, even with our sauna, you take way too much, you use way too much, and you start to have problems. But you do it in a intuitive way, in a safe, moderated way, and it's very safe, very beneficial.
You know, even water is toxic. If you stick a garden hose in your mouth and blast the water, you know, everything has a toxicity level.
Yeah, I
And so
haven't
the fact
drunk
that
from a
methylene
garden
blue,
hose in 20, 30 years probably.
yeah, and so the fact that methylene blue has some challenges with higher doses doesn't make it toxic. It doesn't make it dangerous. It's just like everything else in nature.
Hmm.
How about that blue brain that they've been showing?
Yeah,
Like, oh my
yeah,
God,
we're
you
gonna
don't want
talk. That's that.
your brain to look
I
like
know.
this.
Like that's totally the next thing. But we're gonna interject. Actually, there's this really technical question. We'll see what you can do with this, John. So, Vesa Anima asks, has there been any research using methylene blue to treat cerebral cavernous malformations of the thalamus?
Not that I'm aware of. No, that's a bit of a kind of a unique condition. However, um, oftentimes, quite often, I'll have people come in, and there will be a condition that, I haven't treated an exact condition like that, and people are looking for, a lot of times we have. It's like, yes, we've treated a lot of strokes here. Um, and it all kind of always falls back to what we were just talking about, is that when you're looking at like treating patients with what I call root cause medicine, and then another good word is metabolic medicine, where we're actually working on the energy, right? When
Hmm.
the body has the energy, then the body can function at its peak and it can heal. And I personally believe that toxins and infections are at the cause of virtually all diseases. Obviously there's physical trauma, right? There's a potential that there was, with a stroke, there's generally a lot of chronic inflammation that's happened in the cardiovascular system and the blood vessels and such.
Hmm.
And these things can be looked at, and we can see, are there, food allergies? Is there gut imbalances? Do they have heavy metal toxicity? Is there Lyme disease? Is there mold illness? You start to look at those things, and then when you treat those, the individual can have the best expression to health. And with a case like this, we would probably look at using stem cell therapy, because you can create a neurogenesis effect. You can actually heal a lot of the damage that happens from these strokes
Mm.
by using stem cells with what we call a brain protocol.
Ooh, tell us about that. So you're putting stem cells in the brain?
We are, yeah,
Whoa,
through an IV,
through an IV.
and
Okay.
we have a way of getting it to go into the brain. Sometimes we'll even place stem cells through the nose, and it can cross through a very thin area called the cribriform plate that's very high in the nasal passage. And in some cases, there's an injection called an intrathecal injection, where, similar to what would happen with a pregnant woman, where you would go and do like a lumbar puncture, and it would be placed into the cerebral spinal fluid. So there's a variety of different ways to get these stem cells into the brain and central nervous system. and there's a lot of research within, the area of stroke and damage to the central nervous system from stroke. Also, degenerative neurologic disease, um, you name it.
Wow. Real quick, we've got a question from Dr. Masha. She says, I've recently had a patient with histamine issues due to long-term methylene blue consumption. Have you seen anything like this in your practice?
Mm. Hmm. I haven't. No. I don't. I, I'm curious why they would think that it's definitely methylene blue causing that problem. But you guys are throwing me some
Yeah,
curveballs here.
yeah,
Let's
yeah. Well,
get some
that's
easy questions going. I think most people want to know some basic stuff on methylene blue here.
well, yeah. We try to keep it. We would try to have a high tolerance for questions here, and have a big tent. But yeah, that is very technical. I mean, who knows? It could be parasites. Um, parasites eat pollen, so like parasites in the gut for me is like one of the number one things to go to if you have like serious things going on. Like make sure the gut's working first. But yeah, let's go forward. We got some other myths to steamroll here. So blue brain and blue heart. That's the next big one. So you got guys posting on Instagram and also online these photos of these blue dyed brains that look really scary, and they're saying don't take methylene blue; it turns your brain blue.
Yes.
So
Well, I would say that's exciting. I remember when I first saw those pictures, I was showing them in presenting it to people excited, like, look, like this is great. This is with no thought at all that this is a permanent stain of the brain, right? And maybe this is what is being insinuated with some of these articles, is that individuals might be concerned that their internal body will be permanently stained blue, and that's not the way it works. Methylene blue actually does this beautiful dance between being an oxidant and an antioxidant. And this is one of the things that makes it such a special molecule, because it can, it like kind of bounces electrons back and
uh-huh.
forth. So it helps to lubricate what's called the electron transport chain. So it allows that to be a lot more fluid and more productive, about 30% more, in fact. Um, and
And that's the
there's,
primary way our cells make energy.
correct,
So
within the
so
mitochondria.
so we when we consume methylene blue, we get this immediate like up to 30% increase in cellular energy production and all the cells of the body that it gets into.
Right. I mean, think about like how many conferences you and I have been together where people's mouths are blue, right? Maybe they took the Lumitol blue like the wrong way. We had a few of them in Austin,
Were
and it's funny, their
they
mouth
did they
is
accidentally chew on it?
they do, right? And by the end of the day, it's gone, right? So it's like, well, what's happening there? Why isn't their mouth still stained blue? And
Mm.
so the same thing is happening inside the body, is that there is a temporary staining. Those pictures were taken after someone had very high doses intravenously. And so leukomethylene blue is the reduced form of methylene blue, right? So
Hmm.
it goes between methylene blue and leukomethylene blue. There's like this dance. And after consumption of methylene blue, about between 65 to 85% of all the methylene blue, fairly quickly it converts into leukomethylene blue, which is actually clear. And the leukomethylene blue is part of the benefit. In fact, there's some really good research on how it's an anti-inflammatory and it's antiviral. And so we really want that. And when it's when antioxidants are combined with methylene blue, it makes this conversion, and we can do this actually outside of the body. Like if you were to take water and add methylene blue to it and then add a little bit of vitamin C to it, it'll turn clear. And it's kind of
Wow.
a chemistry trick that they do. And And so this is really what's happening in the body as well. So for those out there that are worried about their heart and their brain turning blue and staying blue, relax. That's just temporary, and eventually things are going to get and convert into leukomethylene blue, and then eventually all of that is going to work its way. It has a about a 12-hour half-life. Yeah. But there is this thought that a little residual of methylene blue may take a little bit more time to fully clear out of the mitochondria. And this is why we think it might be a good idea to take breaks from taking methylene blue occasionally, like doing a dosing schedule where maybe you would take it 10 days on and 2 days off, or a couple of weeks on and a few days off.
So yeah. So your recommendation and what you do in the practice is to cycle it. You're not continuously taking it every day.
Correct.
Bring up that myths article. There's
What about how it's made from coal tar petroleum?
oh
That's another.
that
It sounds
sounds evil.
terrible, right? I mean,
Oh,
especially you and I, we're about the healthiest, natural, tree hugging, granola eating people you'll ever meet, right? And then here
we're
we are
yeah,
taking this synthetic, molecule that was made from petroleum, right?
right.
And
This
so,
big
like, at first
exception.
blush, it's like, oh, right? So, and I felt the same way too, because I'm not a big fan of most medicines. However, this is a much different molecule than anything that we've ever seen in our lifetime. And there's been probably over 150,000 different molecules that have been um, made synthetically, and there's never been anything that has worked like methylene blue works. And so, when you look at petroleum and coal tar, right? So basically, you have plant matter and animal matter, right? It's organic matter that's been compressed in the
Hmm.
earth. So in essence, that's natural, right? But you wouldn't want to consume this. I mean, petroleum is not a healthy thing to consume. However, if you take petroleum, you can break it down into these individual hydrocarbons and um, organic compounds. And what they do is they take that and then they can build larger molecules. And the reason that they like using petroleum to do this is that it's very shelf stable. And you want that because literally, I mean, this methylene blue is extremely shelf stable, and a lot of molecules that they make. Most every drug and medicine is made this way. There are a lot of substances and molecules that are made this way, and because of its origin, does not equal that it's toxic.
Right. It's all about what it is. What is it doing in the body that? And that makes me think of like Shilajit, for example.
It,
That's like this tar, right? Like it's
yeah,
this mineral supplement, but it's also this Buddhist monk secret, you
uh
know,
huh,
um, panacea that's been used for centuries, maybe even millennia, and now it's quite popular, and people are consuming that. And that's not plant based. That's a
yeah.
mineral tar.
But it's like this idea that we're taking as much as we can and creating this narrative to try and villainize methylene blue. It's like not none of the data that I've seen in any of these articles really holds any weight when you really put it against science.
Yeah, and real quick, someone asked, like, where do you get methylene blue? So, Sonospace carries Dr. Laurence's Lumitol Blue. His clinic, he manufactures in-house Lumitol Blue, which is really unique. He's not contracting it out to someone else. Like he's overseeing the manufacturing itself, and his methylene blue is a pharmaceutical grade methylene blue, which means it's tested to be heavy metal and microbe and so forth free. So it's a clean source of methylene blue. And then he's combining it with some other, I forget what you put in there, but other cool stuff in there. And so,
Polyphenols, phycocyanin, which has been suggested as an alternative to methylene blue. We actually put that in, and so a lot of these polyphenols are very good with photobiomodulation as well, because we really want people to get the full spectrum. of all of these beautiful, colorful extracts when they're taking this product.
Yeah, so you have a unique combination. I think that's even more effective than just methylene blue on its own, and it's clean. It's pharmaceutical grade, and so we actually sell that on our website on Sana.space. And of course, you can get it directly from Dr. John from Mitos from his mitozen.club, and I think it's available in a few other places. You have a few other resellers, so. The important thing is, I think one of the most important things is that it's pharmaceutical grade. I think it's a key thing because you can go on to just one of the big online marketplaces and get chemical grade methylene blue, but it's not tested to be heavy metal free, and it's kind of
Well,
a
even the
crapshoot.
right, so you want USP grade is considered like the cleanest, and even like because we buy that from, we actually have a few different manufacturers that we buy it from, but sometimes we'll buy it and it'll come with a certificate of authenticity where they've done testing on it and it
Right.
looks clean. And what we do is whenever we get a batch of methylene blue in, we set it aside and then we send samples in and we do our own independent testing for heavy metals. And sometimes it's not very often, but sometimes those tests come back and we're not really happy with it. Some of those levels are a little higher than we'd want them to be. So then we return that batch to the manufacturer.
Beautiful. So your guys is that you're actually double tested. So the manufacturer has its USP grade methylene blue from the manufacturer with our certificate of authenticity, and then you're bringing it in, and you're testing it again to make sure.
Correct.
That's beautiful. It's so it's just not many folks out there that are taking this stuff seriously, and unfortunately, like with all the supplements and the food too, there's such a growing heavy metal contamination concern because of the modern industrial age and what we live in. That I'm really grateful. We're all grateful that you like taking that extra step to make sure it's like really clean.
Yeah, thank you. It's important. I take it myself. So
Yeah.
partly selfish.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. So someone's asking real quick, would it be okay to take methylene blue every other day? So we're not giving particularized advice here, but Dr. John just mentioned that he's a big fan of personally when he takes it of cycling it. So it's not even really every other day, right? You're taking it a few days on and then taking a break.
Yeah, yeah. Something between 10 and 3 weeks on, and then I'll take a 2 or 3 days off. It's typically how I dose my personally. And yeah, I mean, if you were to do it every other day, that's kind of within that theme of giving enough time to so it's not building up. Because what can happen is sometimes, like if you're taking it every day, and
Hmm.
let's say you're on maybe the higher end of the dosing schedule, you might get to a point where you're like, man, I just feel a little lethargic. I feel because a lot of people feel like they can think a lot clearer. Um, the brain tends to work really well. I had an individual that was here yesterday that works with AI. Um, People in the world of AI. And so he's got to interact with these really, really intelligent people. And he's like, thank you so much because this Lumitol Blue has absolutely changed my life. And I don't know how I could be functioning in this business without taking it. He also really likes the Satori with the paraxanthine. So he mixes those two together, and that's been a really good stack for him.
Right. And that's a real quick. That's another product that you guys make, and the paraxanthium is it's a derivative of caffeine, right?
It's the component of caffeine that gives you all of the jazz without all the frazz.
It's so awesome. Yeah, I've tried it myself. It's nice. It's uh, caffeine can caffeine's kind of like the default go to for so many people, but it really stresses adrenals, over time, and everybody, nobody likes that caffeine crash. So
Disrupts sleep. Yeah, it's incredible the studies that they've been doing on paraxanthine. It's one of the cleanest brain, nootropics, cognitive enhancing substances I've ever taken. Because I tend to get a little anxious if I take caffeine, and it
yeah.
also disrupts my sleep a little bit. And I really love the fact that I don't have any anxiety at all. In fact, I feel really calm and relaxed, but yet alert. And I can even take it later in the day, and it doesn't interrupt my sleep. In fact, some of the studies done suggest that it actually improves your sleep.
Interesting. Wow, that's a whole nother Instagram live we're gonna have to get on later. So I want to get to a couple more myths. We got some big
Okay.
ones. There's two more, but I'm gonna throw you another curveball now since we got one from the audience. So
Okay.
uh, someone's asking, is methylene blue good for Lyme and ME/CFS? I don't know what that is.
No, I don't either. But
But how
Lyme,
about Lyme?
I can talk about Lyme. Yeah, I personally had a major healing journey with Lyme, and
Right.
we treat a lot of it here in the clinic. And the thing with Lyme is that it inhibits your immune system from working, and so you wind up having all these co-infections. And so it's not just Lyme that's the problem; it's Candida and Epstein-Barr virus, and then a lot of times there's mold involved with a lot of when you get into people's history, you find out that there's been water intrusion in their house, blah blah blah, and so we're not usually just talking about just Lyme, the spirochete, although there has been some studies that suggest that methylene blue is effective as an antimicrobial against Lyme. I really like the combination of methylene blue and high dose melatonin for Lyme disease, and
Mm.
this is just the elevator version. As far as like, there's a lot more that could go into it, but um, because Lyme disease has such a detrimental effect to the immune system, and it's so inflammatory that we need something that's going to help buffer those stresses and allow us to continue to make energy so that we have the energy to fuel that immune system. And so methylene blue does that through lubricating that electron transport chain and allowing us to utilize photons and create an antimicrobial effect. With melatonin, it allows our cells to continue to make energy even with the stress of all the inflammation, because naturally what happens with Lyme is that our mitochondrial function goes down because the inflammation triggers something called the cell danger response, which flips our energy production to something that's only about 10% as effective as what we would normally produce energy through.
Mm. So yeah, I mean, definitely Lyme. There's a lot to unpack there, but for those of you who are dealing with that or know someone who deals with that, you might reach out to Dr. John's clinic because he's personally, conquered that. And I know that you're dealing with a lot of that with a lot of your patients very successfully. So, and Tara as well. You're right. Your health coach Tara as well. So
That's right.
you
Yeah.
got a lot of unique experience on the whole Lyme thing. That's really cool. Okay, so let's get back to the myths. So we talked about serotonin syndrome and blue brain, blue heart. Uh, it's interesting that there's actually a question from someone, Dr. John. They want your thoughts on Paul Saladino's perspective. And Paul Saladino, I actually made some notes before this conversation. He mentions basically three things: the blue brain, blue heart, the serotonin syndrome, and then he also mentions, and I'd like you to respond to this. He claims that methylene blue is a trick of the MAO-A making you feel good, but actually your mitochondrial function is getting worse.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I saw that video, and he quickly showed some study that he was referencing, and it was a rodent study. And first of all, you can't, humans and rodents are completely different animals. And so you can't necessarily look at that as being the same.
Hmm.
And what they were doing is they were giving these rodents um, higher doses of methylene blue, and they were measuring their metabolic rate. And so, again, methylene blue, it's helpful for it to turn into leucomethylene blue, right? So methylene blue in of itself is an oxidant, and if you don't get that conversion, and if it's not on that higher end of that 86%, then it can be a little bit more on the oxidative side, which can stress the system a bit. Um, but that's not the way that it works in most people's bodies. And what I find he also said there's no studies on Alzheimer's that show. I think it was him or somebody else, but that's not true at all. They've actually
Hmm.
shown, when you look at methylene blue, look at all of the benefits that it has. And there was another comment suggesting that people don't need to take it unless they have a mitochondrial deficiency, but I think probably
Yeah,
majority
Paul said
of the
that.
population has, because we have such a toxic environment. There's just so many different headwinds to our mitochondria. I think you have this wide need for methylene blue and or something that's powerful that boosts our energy production. But when we look at the research and we look at the studies and the different diseases that methylene blue tends to work on, it works with infections. It actually clears tau and beta amyloid plaque. Like these are the tangles and the plaquing that develop around the
Right.
brain in a lot of these degenerative neurologic disorders. There's a lot of excitement about methylene blue and how it can actually clear a lot of these protein tangles.
Interesting.
Methylene blue has been shown to enhance neurotransmitters. We talked about that.
Hmm.
And to say that that's the only reason that people feel better, and that ultimately they're not healthier, I think is really a wrong way of looking at it, for sure.
Beautiful. So really, it's you you can take research and you can really twist it one way or another. It's important to be really careful in looking at research and understanding. Is it an animal study? Is it a human study? Is it an in vitro study? And what's the scale of it? And um, it's kind of frankly, it's kind of disingenuous to flash a quick article and say, look, it's super bad for you, and not give that context that you just gave.
Yeah.
So
You can always find something contrary to just about everything out there. So, my suggestion is that it's been around 100 years, over 100 years. It's got an incredible safety profile. You know, try it. See if it works for you. And don't listen to these people that are stacking evidence, especially when they're using a lot of evidence that really doesn't have an inherent science behind it, right? Like to say that because something's from a certain derivative that you shouldn't take it. Like, my gosh, I
mhm.
mean, you could go out there and get goat shit and like process it into something. And if I knew that was going to enhance my mitochondrial function, I'd probably be the first one to go ahead and say, yeah, okay, I'll try it.
Yeah, beautiful.
Like drinking your own urine, right? A lot of people are into urine therapy, right? At first blush, that sounds, well, that's your urine. Why would you do that? But then, I actually got into that a little bit. I haven't been doing it of late, but there's a lot of people that find a lot of benefit to that, and that there's all these different byproducts that come out of your urine, and your urine is practically sterile, that it acts like a vaccine for your body to self-regulate itself, right? But again, you know take everything, even what I'm saying, with a grain of salt. Don't necessarily trust everything that you see or hear online, and do your own research.
Yeah, but thank you for providing that context. Yeah. Yeah, the I think uric acid is like one of the most widely used compounds in cosmetics, you know, where they're literally taking urine and processing it and putting it into pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and so forth. So a lot of
Right.
us, I think, are consuming urine and we don't even know.
Yes. I know. If we start getting into like where things are derived from, I think, you know, geez, we could get ourselves so we're not going to consume anything.
Okay, so we got one last myth. This came from actually a Sayer G article that I saw online recently on Green Med Health, and I'm a big fan of Sayer G. Like, I love a lot of the work he's done to bring truth, you know, to health and wellness. But this particular article, so I wanted you to respond to this. It it um, it referred to a study that claims that methylene blue could cause significant changes in blood pressure and heart rate. So there's a concern that methylene blue might mess up our blood system or our heart or our heart rate. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Um, yes, methylene blue can lower blood pressure, and it does that through nitric oxide. So it does elevate nitric oxide. And by the way, I also like to shout out with Sayer G. We have a lot of friends in common, and we're all on the same mission for sure. What I find really interesting is that Sayer G has an ownership in a company that sells methylene blue, which I thought was really, really odd that he released that article. But anyway, I mean, I think maybe behind the scenes he's probably more of a fan of it than he would admit. But Sayer G, if you listen to this live, you know, chime in. Let us understand like where you're coming from on all this.
Mhm. So methylene blue does have this immediate effect because of the nitric oxide of lowering blood pressure temporarily.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, right. Like that, wouldn't that be a good thing for a lot of people?
Well, if you have low blood pressure, you probably need to make sure that you start low and build up and check your blood pressure, you know, because you can run into some problems where you get up and you may lose consciousness and hit your head or something like that. But yeah, again, this is why you want to work with a healthcare provider, you know,
Mhm.
especially if you've got a lot going on. You know who you are out there. You know, if you're really sensitive, you know, you have some issues with things like blood pressure, then talk to someone before you just start taking it.
Yeah, the human body is just so complex. It's never only one thing. Like the light therapy, one of the direct effects of photobiomodulation is release of nitric oxide out of the cell. So you get vasodilation and you get increased blood flow, but blood pressure doesn't go up. It can actually go down because the blood vessels are getting like super wide.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
But
and
does it
it
does it lead to heart issues? Like no.
yeah, I mean, you could write a really bad negative article on saunas, right? And how dangerous saunas are. I mean, shoot, you could catch a cold when you get out of the sauna, right? Because if you're out in cold weather, or you might slip and fall when you get out of the sauna because your feet are wet. You know, I mean, it's almost like that crazy of a way of looking at a certain at least that's the way I see it when I read some of these articles. It's just very, very much like there's an agenda. Like I've been watching the news a lot, and you know, watching Fox News and listening to what they might say about different policies that Trump is doing, or RFK, and then I'll watch CNN or MSNBC or one of those, and it's a completely different story. And I've seen how they kind of bend these things around a little bit in order to support a certain narrative that they would like. And this is kind of the same thing that's happening with methylene blue.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it's just because, with its newfound popularity, um, the forces of separation, the guys on the other side are like, hey, we need to clamp down on this. We need to, go against this because it's at the end of the day, it's affordable to manufacture. We basically have a limited supply of it. It has to be manufactured, but um, and it's technically not a drug because its inception predates the FDA. So it is only used for research purposes, but it's something that is widely accessible for people and and both in your practice and also even just with the sauna space customer community, like our customers love it. The immediate effects, the immediate beneficial effects that they get, and the ability to combine it, with the light, where it's this photodynamic thing.
What kind of things are you hearing, Brian? I'd be curious.
We're some of the just general reports of like what it's good for. People feel better, improved mood. People feel like improved cognition, improved energy. Um, and and that's a big thing for so many people. Like most of our customers are coming to us and they already have one, if not two, three, four, five chronic issues going on. So also some people report improved sleep, although maybe some of that is due to the sauna as well. But yeah, like I think the most obvious thing is just kind of the mood boost. Like life is tough, it's stressful out there, and having this thing that can just help you, give you a cognitive lift and a mood boost so that you can be more and parasympathetic during the day and get through the
Yeah.
day and handle things better and not take on so much stress is just a game changer. And so, yeah, we have a ton of customers there. They basically, we're not allowed to like recommend protocols, but I'm allowed to talk about what I do. So I wrote an article on like what do I do with it, where I take I take your lumitol blue about 20 minutes, 30 minutes before I get in the sauna, and cycle it on. I use it 3 or 4 days and then cycle it off. And then when I travel, I definitely use it. The one time where I was like, I forgot to use it when I travel was that Biohack Yourself event, the last November or whatever in Las Vegas. And there was someone there who was coughing on me like for like 20 minutes in a conversation. And boy, if I didn't get like just floored when I got to Florida for my
Oh,
vacation. I
oh
was I was
yes.
like thankfully I brought a sauna with me, but I was like 2 days I
Did
couldn't leave the Airbnb.
Did you hear about the study they did? They were doing a study in UK. 20. It was on. Um, I think it was on cancer, and it was 2,500 people, and they were all taking methylene blue, and it was over a year at least, and not one of them contracted COVID, and so they were just like absolutely floored at this, like, how is it that like not one person in this study contracted COVID?
Wow.
And so the researchers' conclusion is that methylene blue seems to have a great ability to prevent us from catching things.
Yeah, and that aligns with its one of its original first uses. It was first invented as a dye for fabric, but as I understand, one of the first things it was used for in terms of human treatment was malaria,
Right. Yeah.
like over a
Exactly.
hundred years ago now.
Yeah. Right. And it was accidental because he was dyeing the parasite that carries malaria. He was looking in the microscope, and the parasite died. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I got my cure before I even started my research."
Incredible, and that's why your book's called the Silver Bullet or the Magic Bullet.
Yeah.
That phrase is coined for methylene blue, which is something that I learned from you. It's fascinating. So it has so many uses. And I'm so glad I got you on to like really demystify this stuff. Some of this fear mongering that's been going on, because it's just such a beneficial tool in the wellness toolkit for so many things. And so if anyone has like wants an actual doctor's advice on how to do methylene blue, I would recommend you more than anybody else. You've been using it for so long, and you have a clinical practice, you've used it yourself. It just your background on it is really unparalleled.
Mm, thank you. Yeah, we've found it to be really useful in the clinic. We're actually doing some research on some interesting areas in medicine that are very high unmet needs. We got a treatment for the prostate called Prostabluezone, where we're actually injecting methylene blue into the prostate. We had a case that we have a before and after MRI where a tumor completely shrunk on the
Wow.
post MRI. And we mostly treat people with benign prostatic hypertrophy, which we actually do testing and find out that it's actually an infection. And so
Mm.
the report comes back, and we do before and after testing and see that we've cleared out a lot of these infections. And then we use light therapy to kind of activate the methylene blue once it's been injected in there. We're using it with inner ear regeneration because we use lasers and stem cell injections into the ear. And so, with the stem cell brain protocol that we do in conjunction with treating the ears, because hearing is also the brain as well. We do the methylene blue IV to supercharge the stem cells. We have people take it orally while they're doing their laser treatments. So, like anybody out there doing any type of therapy with laser or red light, or if they've got like a red light panel, and if they've got a sauna, methylene blue is a really great and easy way to boost the effectiveness of. You think about like when you get
Mhm.
into your sauna, like the level of um, near infrared that comes out of those lamps is just off the chart. And though that red and near infrared is going to penetrate deep into your body, and when you've got methylene blue running through your body, that blue is gonna, like I said, it's gonna act like a sponge. It's just gonna pull those photons in so you can utilize them more effectively.
Yeah, and so I'd like to conclude actually with one last thing. There was a question from the audience about benefits of methylene blue for the eyes. And before you answer, I just want to say, like, my actual sauna space protocol is I take Lumitol Blue about 20 or 30 minutes before, or maybe even more, and then I'll do like my mobility workout, and then I'll get on the vibe plate for a little bit to like vibe the methylene blue into my
I,
cells.
I
But
love
right when I
that.
get in, so then right when I get in the sauna, you have another product called Root Zen that you apply one drop to the perineum actually, and it's quite activating. And then the other product that you
The
have that's a
blue
methylene
eyes.
blue product is Blue
Yeah,
Eyes. So I put a drop of Blue Eyes in each eye. And so tell us, let's conclude this with tell us about Blue Eyes and about what is methylene blue good for, how it's good for the eyes.
sure. Well, the eyes, like any cells in your body, the cells that make up the eyes have mitochondria. And besides that, they're the biggest absorber of photons out of any organ in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's generally how it works is the photons are coming in and it gives us vision. And then there's the circadian rhythm that's based on um, rhythms of light. And we want more blue and green light during the day. And then obviously we want the absence of light when we're sleeping. And then when the sun goes down, it's, you know, like you, we use your lights all over the place. We even use them here at the clinic quite a bit. When patients are laying on the table, like we have these arms that you made.
Mm-hmm.
What do you call those
We
arms,
call
by the way?
it the desk arm. Yeah.
Okay. So
Just
I'd recommend
glow
anybody
desk arm.
watching this, it's like just get set up with like a few of these around your house, at your workspace. You will absolutely love it, especially during the winter. I mean, they are just
Mm.
like a little campfire. Um, I mean, I just love being able to turn it on for a little bit, warm myself up, and then I'll turn it on and off, to kind of regulate my temperature, and it just feels so cozy. But back to the eyes.
Yeah.
So my I love it when people use. I love to personally use the blue eyes when I watch the sun come up, or I'll watch a sunset, and I let the photons and I let that light. Or if I'm in a sauna space sauna, then I'll put the blue eyes in while I'm in the sauna. Kind of like you, I have my stack. I love the root zen because I like to do breath work in the sauna as well sometimes,
Mhm.
and I like to do breath work at the beach. So I like to use that root zen to kind of give that root chakra like some attention, and it kind of brings that energy up, like the kundalini. You
Definitely.
know, just I feel like my body is just more activated after that. And then we have the breath honey that I really like to use in the sauna because it kind of cools you down a little bit.
Yeah, the
I
breath
feel
honey is
like I
super
can get a
cool.
little bit more time in the sauna, like when I'm starting to get to that point where I'm like, I hit a little bit of breath honey and it just like is like this
Mm.
Arctic blast.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, we just started carrying that as well. Like it's a cool, really cool product. Yeah, it's like, ooh, it is like this cool honey sweet, like coolness to the whole chest and the mouth.
Yeah, love that. I,
Beautiful.
I love that you and Mila are enjoying the Mitozen products, and that all of your tribe with the sauna space tribe, man. What a great group of people. Whenever we're at conferences, your your booth and with all the saunas is just it's kind of like ours. I think we're gonna have to do something together where we combine, and Pavel, you know, um,
We will. We will.
yeah,
We need to get it together. Yeah, we're actually going to two little conferences next week in Austin and Dallas the same weekend, actually, next weekend. And we're rolling out our new booth look. Actually, it's pretty exciting. We've been working on our part of our rebrand. We have this a whole upgrade. So I'll send you some photos when it comes out. But yeah, man, we definitely we need to have like a super booth.
yeah,
Me, you,
yes.
Pavel,
Well,
and maybe even
I
get Jason Saunders in there.
yes, yes. I'd like to put together another Red Blue O2 event before the end of the year as well. So I want to get with you after this and look at some dates as well as
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
Jason, and let's get
Yeah,
something on the schedule.
yeah, everybody. So Red Blue O2 is this cool protocol that John, Dr. Saunders, and I kind of figured out that's super amazing. We've actually had two events where we go into the research and the protocol and talk about it at Dr. John's clinic. Dr. John's clinic has this amazing event space, and so yeah, we definitely should do a part three. We'll get together afterwards. Wow, John, we could go on for hours. I want to make sure we keep this tight though to the methylene blue mist. This has been so enlightening, so illuminating. Thank you for coming on and being our methylene blue expert. And I wanted to say how proud I am of you
Mm.
for this journey you've been on, that you continue to be on. Seeing you at HOS last week on the stage, you look buff, by the way. You like look super buff. I was like, whoa, he's been working out or something. Just to see you out there, I was just brought tears to my eyes. So thank you so much
Mm.
for sticking with it, and just you have so much in front of you. You're
Well, you and Mila coming through town and setting up the sauna for me over here was a big, I've been using that very regularly, and I think without that, I don't know that I would have been able to make that event because sauna has just been so powerful for me in my healing journey. So thank you so much.
yeah, and we'll see you at the wedding, right? Now that you can travel, you're coming to our
Oh
wedding.
yeah, I will be
Yes.
there for sure.
Thank the Lord. All right. Amazing. Awesome. Well, you're looking good, bro. So glad for all that. Mila says hi. And
Hi
uh
Mila.
Hi, Dawn.
yeah, she's here in the background,
Always.
emceeing, of course. Yeah, so we're gonna post this with our article, and we'll definitely link to you, and amazing. Thank you so much. You're the best.
All right. right. Well,
Love, brother.
namaste, brother.
Yeah, namaste. Take care. We'll
All
see you
right.
soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.